Dear Clash Guards, I confess my emotions have been a mess. Cause you changed everything we ever knew. From witches to poison and the Queen Walk too. Whoa, I've been wrong, I was wrong. Been at town all night, way too long. Getting hogs and Valkyries. I'll push that button and believe in you again.
Welcome to episode 98 of Pineapples and Thorns. I'm Kat, and tonight I am joined by two very special people, Darth Yoda, leader of Sons of Guns, and CallMeTee, former leader and current co-leader at SOG, and the godfather of strategic rushing. Welcome, guys.
Hello there.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Let's start off, and you guys can give us a brief Clash history update as to where you both are right now in your Clash journey. T, do you want to go first?
Sure. I was basically perfectly timed to max out during Hammer Jam with my final wall. And then I booked Town Hall 17 day one. And so I'm just kind of working through those initial upgrades. Been playing since 2019. So, just kind of chugging along at the, shockingly for me, I'm apparently a maxer now because I don't actually have any accounts that are in a rush state.
That is shocking. Yoda?
Yeah, well, I think it's funny you're starting off this podcast by saying give us a brief history, because nothing T and I seems to do is ever very brief. we were just joking about that before we started the pod, T, before you actually joined on. And the last episode, the one that you and I were on together, that set the Pineapples and Thorns length record at like over 2 hours.
Wow. Well, listen, nobody ever accused me of being succinct,
Exactly.
It's all content. It's all content.
All right, so yeah, I'm Darth Yoda. I'm the leader of the Sons of Guns. I took over as leader from the great CallMeTee. Gosh, it's probably been a few years ago by now. Time flies so fast, but I started a little later than T did. I started in 2020 as a result of the pandemic and the shut in. I was one of those people that didn't have anything to do and was just looking for a game to pick up, and just kind of randomly found Clash and started from there. Currently, I have two max 16s that just went to 17. So obviously, we're going to get into a lot of that today. I have a max 14 that's permamax, and that's still to this day my favorite town hall. So that one is always going to stay at 14. And I've got a town hall 9 that's completely maxed, and then I've got a donator account as well that just kind of floats me around as I'm doing my various legends hits and things. So yeah, currently the leader of the Sons of Guns, and glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Glad you guys could join me. So there's a lot to unpack tonight. So first thing I wanted to talk about, we had a little bit of Clash drama this past week, a big shock. There was a couple of content creators that both released sneak peek number 1 about a day early. We knew that updates were coming, and there's been lots of little leaks for the past few weeks about what we could expect. But these were really official-looking videos by established Supercell content creators. What do you guys think about stuff like that? Do you like getting these kind of spoilers? What do you think Supercell can do to prevent those kind of leaks?
Oh, I could legitimately talk about this for an hour and a half on its own. So
boy.
I'll let Yoda go first, and I'll come in with a couple hot takes, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Well, I have a couple of hot takes of my own on this. I could talk about it for a long time as well, because I've got some strong feelings on the matter. What I think that and I don't mind calling them out. I mean, Galadon and Eric, right? And I would say what I'm about to say right to their faces. Well, maybe not Eric. He's got arms like trucks, but Galadon for sure. I think it's first off, it was 100% on purpose. It wasn't in it. They did it all, okay. And all three of us know people in the creator program. We have friends in the creator program, right? And it's very disheartening, is the nicest way I could say it, when these guys do things like this, because essentially they're taking food off of people's tables that are trying to do that job legitimately. And for some of these creators, it is their job. It's their source of income. So when these knuckleheads go and release videos early, like how many less views did Itsu get? How many less views did Trample Damage get? Because people already knew a day early what was going to be in these what was going to be what was going to be the first sneak peeks. Like people already knew. And once the cat was out of the bag, it was like everybody knew. So it's kind of like even if I like say that I did not want to watch those videos, it was all over the Sons of Guns Discord server the minute that they were launched. Like there was no getting around it. So
Hmm.
they ruined the surprise for me. And I think that they do a huge disservice to their fellow content creators. And quite frankly, I think that they should both be immediately removed from the program. And I think that's as harsh as it needs to be. Like they should be completely gone. And I'm surprised that that hasn't happened yet. So that's kind of where I'm at on. See, what do you got?
So to me, it's just like it's Supercell's obsessive need to have these sneak peeks happen right before the launch of the town hall, where they want like this immediate rise in hype to get people to, I don't know, spend some money or whatever it is that they're trying to capitalize on. Where I've said this dozens of times through different servers and to different people. If you don't want to deal with leakers and you don't want to deal with these data miners, the only thing that you can really do, and the only thing that you really should do, is just talk to the community ahead of time. Share art ahead of time because it'll build hype. It'll be clear, transparent communication. People can make videos on it. There can be, you could have people like Itsu, who's like one of the most prolific creators, who's really trying to do things by the book, and like Yoda said, it sucks that he doesn't get to be one of the guys on the cutting edge of these new things because somebody snuck it ahead of time. But you could allow people to talk about, oh, what do you think this image is? What do you think that image is? And if you put the art out ahead of time, it takes the sting out of people data mining the pictures or the stats. It takes the sting out of people releasing stuff early. And it just, to me, it's, as much as I agree with Yoda, and I think that what Eric and Galanon did was one, intentional. I agree. Like once is a mistake, three is a pattern, and I think Galanon passed 3 of these a year ago. Like he just consistently does it with every update. I think Eric not necessarily was like planned, but he saw that Galadin released it, so he was like, why not? That's kind of my guess, but again, I don't know either guy, so like, who knows? But to me, it's Supercell's fault, right? At the baseline, it's the fact that they don't want to communicate with the community ahead of time because either they're afraid that they're going to change stuff or they're afraid that the community is going to respond negatively, which, to be fair, gamer communities tend to be toxic as like a default. But you can see it in other games, right? You can see it in other communities with other community managers that are more willing to speak, admit when they make a misstep, admit when they're like, oh, you know what? This was what we intended to happen. It didn't go that way. Our bad. We're going to fix it as soon as we can. And here's like our goal. And generally, communities are much more willing to accept something like that than when we have these, month-long droughts of content with nothing happening. And then it's like, oh, did you see the data mine? They got the stats of the new building that's coming. Oh, they got the new hero. Oh, they got, and it's like weeks before Galadin and Eric went, a day early, there were already pictures on Reddit if you wanted to find them. So it's like,
Yeah.
I agree 100% that, what Galadin and Eric did was wrong. They broke terms. They did something that was like, hey, in order to have access to this information ahead of time, you have to agree to a certain set of principles. And I think if you want that information, you should agree to those principles, right? But it's Supercell's problem. It's Supercell's obsessive need to be sneaky and to like time. Like, why does the sneak peek for the town hall have to happen the weekend before it releases? Because, by the way, they don't even have good town hall releases. Every one that we've gotten since I started playing has come with a plethora of bugs. Like,
we will be talking about those.
Right. And I'll sneak peek. Here's my answer. We should have some sort of publicly available test environment, right? Like I know they're in the creator program, they have the developer build, but in the developer build, you don't have regular matchmaking because it's essentially a private server. You don't have real progression because everybody in there is just like, going up and down the levels using the developer tools to like test stuff like army attacks and full comps and defenses and all that stuff. And all that's great. And like the creators that are doing that work are improving the game by leaps and bounds. But there's just no replacing millions of people pressing buttons until stuff breaks.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I think that's one thing that Supercell's always struggled with is the communication aspect of, interacting with the community, telling everyone sort of, you don't have to tell everybody everything. But like being transparent and talking to the community, interacting, they have gotten a little bit better. I do remember in the early days, you would never hear, I don't even think they had a community manager at first. And then, of course, they had Darian, and that saw things improve leaps and bounds. And now, the new guys are doing their best, but, they're having to follow company protocols. So I think that's definitely an issue. We're going to talk a lot about the bugs in Town Hall 17, but I wanted to dive into a brief autopsy of Town Hall 16. It's so sad. Everybody cried when Town Hall 16 was over. Not really, but let's talk one thing. What is one thing that they did right in Town Hall 16, and one thing that they did wrong? Yoda.
Okay. So I think, when you look at Town Hall 16, I think that you have to go back to Town Hall 15 first. And I will be brief. Okay. So everybody despised Town Hall 15, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
engagement was low. People were not enjoying the game. People were leaving the game. It was for your average clasher, it was way too difficult. And people quit over it. And when Town Hall 16 came out, it was like a breath of fresh air to the community. It was significantly easier. And I think that it was an overcorrection, which I'll talk about in a minute. But to answer your question, what they did, one thing that they did right for Town Hall 16 was the hero equipment. We've heard Supercell say numerous times in the past that they're releasing some game-changing feature that's going to change the game forever, and then it never does, right? But with the hero equipment, it definitely did. Like it changed the way that we play Clash of Clans from that point forward for forever. Like it was that
Mm-hmm.
impactful. And the amount of things that you could do with the equipment, the variability, how effective the equipment was all a huge win. Like that was game changing, and it was something that I think they did really really well. Now, on the other hand, when you look back at Town Hall 16, the biggest problem that the town hall had was balance. And it was a problem really from the very beginning. And then we just had varying degrees of the balance issue. Like when it was first released and we had Root Riders, right? We had Root Rider, Valk, Overgrowth Spell. And that every single person was using it because it was so strong, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
completely broken out of the box, and they should have never released it that way. And it like basically, and T can tell you this, like at one point, I mandated everybody in the Sons of Guns use the darn attack because everybody was using it against us. And when I've got to tell an entire clan of hundreds of people they all need to use one attack, that's a problem. But that's the only way that we were going to be able to compete and win wars at the time. And that was because the troop was so broken. And then of course, we had the corrections. We had the nerfs to the troop, right before CWL, and the timing of that was just completely awful. The good thing that came out of the nerf though of the Root Rider, is that people started using different attacks. Like we learned that, oh my God, there are so many different attacks that are effective at Town Hall 16, and they had been effective from the very beginning. Um, and people would have been using them from the very beginning if the Root Rider hadn't have been so broken. And what we're dealing with right now, at the end of Town Hall 16 is the same issues. Like we're having, like in the Sons of Guns, we're having repetitive wars where it's just we're it's perfect every single time, and the other team is perfect at every single time, and we're getting all of these ties. because the game is too easy. So I'm hopeful that the balance is going to change at 17. I know we're going to get into it a little bit. It certainly doesn't appear so on the surface so far.
Right.
T, what do you got?
So it's funny for me because for the first time, I think ever in any Town Hall release, maybe outside of Town Hall 15, I think that the best thing that Supercell did in Town Hall 16 were the merge defenses. I thought it was a very interesting way to remove otherwise onerous defenses. Like the Archer Tower and the Cannon had 21 levels of upgrades. Before Town Hall 16 released, each one, if you got a brand new cannon, would take 76 days to upgrade to max. Was absolutely ridiculous. Like, and it's 21 levels, so it's not even like you can skip them all with books and hammers and all that. So I think the way they implemented these merge defenses, because I should be clear, I don't we'll get into it when we get into Title 17, but these merge defenses I thought were a great idea. You got rid of defenses that weren't impactful. Like, when was the last time you lost an attack because of a cannon or an archer tower?
Mhm.
Almost never, right? Like it's got to be like such a skin of your teeth hit that it's 99% and you're down to like a baby dragon and the archer tower is the last thing left and maybe it'll stop it. Maybe. And so I really liked that. I thought it was really neat. You got rid of these useless defenses. You came up with, like, in theory, the ricochet cannon, one, it's very powerful. It's a good defense. It's a good thing to put into your base. But it was also, in theory, a way to indirectly nerf heroes because it made the really strong ground pets more vulnerable to damage, right? Like, if you put your Archer Queen into a ricochet cannon and you have Unicorn on her, the Unicorn's gonna die. It's gonna die really fast, way before the Queen can take it down. And that's like a very interesting, smart way to reduce the power of the Archer Queen Unicorn combo without making anyone really notice directly and be like, oh, you're nerfing all of my effort and you're nerfing all of my time and all of those things. So I thought that was a super clever, interesting way. And the same thing with the multi-archer tower. It also indirectly nerfed queen charges a little bit because, you know, if your queen went into a multi-archer tower, yeah, you know, the damage would go down because the damage would get spread out to the unicorn and your healers and stuff, but it would also be damaging the healers more. And then if a healer is like a little lower, then maybe like 2 red bombs might kill a healer that might not have, right? So those merge defenses I thought were the best idea that Supercell has had in a very long time. I didn't super love the implications for what it would mean for upgrading to Town Hall 17. I think that's kind of like a little step back. But overall, I thought the merge defenses were one of the most creative methods of a signature defense that Supercell has had in a long time. Overall, the defensive meta in Town Hall 16 kind of left a lot to be desired, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of things that I think they did wrong, is funny for me because I think the equipment is one of the biggest missteps that Supercell has made. I don't know, since the beginning of the game. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of being able to swap out your hero abilities. I think it's super neat. I think the balance of Town Hall 16 was heavily disrupted, not just because of the Root Riders. The Root Riders were kind of the enablers, but because of the equipment, where you had all of these defenses were based around specific balance points, right? Like it was based around the idea that you had an Archer Queen with X amount of hit points doing Y amount of DPS. And like, these are the things that she can do. She can temporarily turn invisible for a little while, and that's it, right? And then you start throwing in a Barbarian King that can break walls down, Archer Queen that can shoot an arrow across the base. And all of a sudden, these bases aren't capable of stopping it. And the Root Riders were just kind of your little, like, enabling thing to break down the walls easier so that your heroes just demolished the base. And so I think the execution of the equipment was part of the problem, but the bigger problem to me is the income required to max out your equipment is insane. And I think we need to like double, maybe triple the income of ore for players. Because as a new player right now, if you started the game today and you managed to day one get all the way to Town Hall 16. I don't have the math yet for 17 because there's bugs and we'll talk about that later. But if you somehow managed to get everything level 1 dropped day 1 to Town Hall 16, so that from the moment you started playing until the moment you maxed your equipment, you would need over 630 days. And that's assuming you can get into a clan with the 50% war win rate. You never miss any of your war attacks. You're in a CWL league where you can hit nothing but Town Hall 16s, and you can maintain Legend leagues, and you buy the event pass. And it's still over 600 days before you have all of your equipment maxed. And that's just insane. It's insane to me that nowadays it's going to take you less time to max out your lab or your buildings. How is that? Like, I don't know. It just to me is like crazy. That it's not how the game should be. And the fact that every time we get more equipment, it's this kind of thing where it's like, hey, if they release another piece of equipment for the Barbarian King, that's more time it's going to take you to max, and all of the ore that you put into that extra piece of equipment is indirect power. It just goes into the ether because you may or may not even use that piece of equipment. So I think equipment is a massive mixed bag where Yoda's right. It was really cool, but I think that the actual execution has left a very sour taste in my mouth.
I was just going to add on, because I agree with many of the points that T made, but I wonder if the lack of ore and the amount of equipment that we've gotten over the last year is it's got to be completely intentional by Supercell, right? I mean, like you and me specifically, T. Well, actually, almost anybody that probably listens to this podcast has been, we've been in a state of max for a very long time, prior to Town Hall 16 dropping, right? Like we would be maxed out for months and months and months with nothing to do. So I think them dropping, like releasing additional equipments and making the cost of the equipment so high and the ore so scarce, I think it's totally intentional on their part.
Well, 100% agree. That's part of why I'm annoyed. It doesn't seem like it's an error, right? It doesn't seem like, they just put the decimal place in the wrong spot. This seems intentional. It seems they want, the math says, with the same caveats that I gave before, that around 2.5 to 3 months is what it takes to earn enough ore to max a single piece of epic equipment. And it's very annoying because while you're doing that, you're also earning excess blue and purple ore. So unless you're noticing that, you need to also be maxing common equipment. Now, there's some advice on YouTube from certain YouTubers who I will not name, even though I'm very angry at them and have had to correct their videos multiple times. If people go and max their common equipment first, you end up burning so much blue and purple ore while you're trying to max your epic equipment. It's insane. So again, like the implications of how you earn ore in the game is just nuts. Like having 3 resources, super dumb. At the very maximum should be 2. And it's like, you just simplify, clarify, and make it just like easier. Like it's just, I don't know, but
no, I agree with everything you guys say. What I wanted to talk a little bit about is the impact of another new town hall now on strategic rushers. Obviously you have to rewrite your whole guide. So how is this new town hall impacting the strategic rushing community? And do you feel that there's still a place for it? There's like limitations that they've put on in order for people to move up town halls now.
Okay. So the immediate thing that people might think is this is Supercell saying brushing is bad, is the hero hall and requiring that to be maxed before you can upgrade your town hall.
Mm-hmm.
And technically, yes, it is a slight impediment to your rushing. However, there's always a minimum amount of time that you need to spend in any given town hall if you want to rush the way that I recommend, which is not to just the second you can hit the town hall button, press it, right? Like that is not what you should be doing, and that's not what my guide recommends. So, if you're going to spend some amount of time in the town hall to do what I recommend, which is to max your offense, to get some hero levels done, and then go up, it's just one extra building, right? It's never going to be something that's going to be the actual bottleneck. And then once you get to around Town Hall 13, you start to realize that your bottleneck for rushing is the Giga weapon. So it's the Giga Inferno, it's the Giga Tesla. And those 5 levels, they're very bad magic item level because they're magic item value because they're not very long upgrades. But in total, you need to spend, I didn't do the math yet for the time reduction, but it's probably around 3 weeks in Town Hall 14 just to get your Giga weapon done. So in those 3 weeks, okay, maybe you get one less hero level done because you have to upgrade the hero hall, but you're going to want to upgrade that thing anyways, because the whole point of strategic rushing is that you want your heroes maxed early. So whatever they do to make you, like, whatever you have to do in order to get your heroes high level, that's the first thing you're going to do no matter what anyways, especially if you're ahead of the curve and your heroes are closer to max, you're going to want to upgrade the hero hall essentially first no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the first obvious one where everybody's like, oh no, you can't rush. And no, in the end of the day, it's not going to really impact your timing really at all. The big one that's a problem, which is what I've been saying to people all year since Town Hall 16 released, was make sure that you're constantly working on 4 cannons and 4 archer towers whenever you have time to fit in a short upgrade, because you need to have those maxed in order to place your merged defenses in order to upgrade to the town hall. And so for the whole year, that's all I've really been recommending people do. And then we find out that you also need a maxed eagle. Now, here's the thing. I've always recommended that if you have an overflow book, meaning you're in, say, Town Hall 12, and you can't upgrade your Town Hall yet because you're still working on the Giga Weapon, and it's the end of the month, and you have a book of building in your storage, and you have a book of building in your gold pass. People are always like, oh, like, should I let the book go to gems? Or it's like, no. You always want to spend it on one of your longest upgrades in the town hall, because it's always better to spend the book than it is to let it go to gems. And if you're already working on your offense, a lot of times that ends up being your Eagle artillery, because often it's one of the longest upgrades. It's a single building. It's very easy to keep it one level off max. So it's not like Infernos where sometimes you have 2 levels in a town hall to upgrade, and so you have to upgrade one, and then the second one is the one that you can book, and blah blah blah. That gets very complicated very quickly. So luckily, most of what I recommend in the guide doesn't have to change. I just have like a couple little caveats that I have to add, except they also added extra heroes to the lower town halls. And the implications of that are complicated. And that's the thing that right now I am trying to do the math and the spreadsheets and figuring out, like, okay, what can you fit in? How fast can you get your builders? Where are you spending your gems? And that's the kind of stuff that in like the next week or so, I'm hoping to have some time off work because of the holidays and like work through all of that. And right now, I don't think the actual impact on strategic rushing is going to change in the big picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rules are going to stay the same. It's offense is better than defense. New is better than existing. Don't spend too much time in any given town hall. Get to town hall 15, 16, 17 as fast as you can. Like, all of those things are still true. The only thing is, hey, there might be a couple caveats of, all right, in addition to worrying about your archer tower and your cannon, and in addition to, you're a new player, you have to catch up on all of the epic equipment that has come out, and the apprentice builder and the a lab assistant and all of these things. There's just like a little more things that you could potentially trip up on, right? So I might have to put a couple more warnings in the beginning of the guide, but otherwise, strategic rushing is still going to be the fastest way to get to maxed, period.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's dive into Town Hall 17. It's a, big update. Everybody's pretty excited about it. Let's start with the new color theme. What do you guys think of the color theme?
I'm like we've talked about in the past, I'm not like a skin guy or a scenery guy or even the color schemes. It's just not what fires first for me in the game. But I mean, I it's a little dull. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's a little dull in my opinion. Even though it's not the hugest deal in the world to me. Um, I still thought Town Hall 14 had an awesome scheme. But yeah, it's okay. That's all I'll really say on it. See,
All
what do
right.
you think?
It's funny because Town Hall 14 is my least favorite by miles. I did not like Town Hall 15 remains my favorite overall because I like that kind of match of how the buildings looked with how the walls looked, and like the blue tone was really cool. And it's funny because like purple is my favorite color, and I don't really like the Town Hall 17 look. But it's so hard, right? Because we don't really have, well, I don't really have enough buildings placed, and I always hate when your base is all clashing, and it's like, oh well, Town Hall 17 was Town Hall 16 was very white and red and gold and all of these colors, and then it's like, oh, now we're going to like dark purple, and it's like they just don't really work so well together for me. So right now my base looks heinous, but I think with time the theme will grow on me.
Yeah, I personally, I like the move to a darker theme. Town Hall 9 obviously is my all-time favorite color scheme.
Yeah. Town Hall 9 is nice.
The only thing that would have made Town Hall 9 perfect is if you had the skull walls in Town Hall 9.
For sure.
Yeah, that would have been perfect. But yeah, I think overall, so far, I like the color scheme. It'll be nice once everything is released. But one thing we did want to talk about, Yoda, is that there were some glitches in the release.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a couple.
Indeed.
Just a couple of little bitsy witsy ones, such as the fact that when you did your war attack, you would disconnect.
The training potions don't affect heroes. That's a fun one.
Exactly. What other ones have you guys noticed?
I noticed one today. So I hadn't had any crashing issues. And then I was trying to do some clan game challenges, and everyone knows that the smart way to do that is to do builder-based challenges. And everyone knows that the smart way to do the builder-based challenges is to just start whatever the challenge is and then quit out of the game and reboot. And I noticed that like every other time I did that, I would restart and get into the game, and everything would load and it'd be fine. And then it would just freeze completely. And I'd have to do it again. I'd have to force close, completely close it and restart it, and that was getting real annoying when I was having to do the kill 4 Mega Tesla builder base challenge. So I was like, what is, and then I was like, oh, got it, this is an update bug.
Yoda, anything leap out at you?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the two big ones, but listen, I got to get this off my chest with this training pod deal. Because I don't play the game like most people play the game. Like most people are logging in throughout the day and kind of gradually doing their hits, right? That's not what I do at all. I play that's not me at all. Like I play consecutively for hours at a time in the evenings. Like I don't watch any TV. Like my TV time is my clash time. Like that's when I come up from work. I can crack open a couple of beers and I could pop my training pot and just sit there and just start rolling through my attacks because I enjoy it. Like I enjoy the game. That's my favorite part of the game is doing like my legends hits or my war attacks, and I do them all consecutively. So it has really been annoying the piss out of me that I'm having to log in on my phone and do a legends hit and then wait 30 minutes like the rest of the world does it to do another attack. That's not how I play the game at all. And I'm hoping that they get this corrected relatively soon. I know that they did release an update today. I downloaded the update. I can confirm what some others have mentioned that it does not solve the training pot issue yet. I'm hearing that it will eventually, but yeah, that update didn't fix the problem, and it's annoying the heck out of me.
Well, and that is a really big issue because you have this army trained. You can't use your heroes. It's a potion that's supposed to boost everything so that you can do your attacks, play the game. And there's been again, this circles back to your point earlier, T, about the lack of communication.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. And This is the kind of thing that, to me, this is when you just say, okay, we can't fix it right away. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to give everybody a free hero boost, right? Or
Mhm.
we're going to give 1 gem hero boost again, like they had in Hammer Jam, right?
Yeah.
That okay. I don't know how the code of the game works. I am not privy to their dev environment or anything like that. But I just have to imagine that it has to be easier for them to re-implement that than it is to do whatever the actual fix is that they need to do. And this way, if that was the case, then everybody's happy, right?
Yeah.
If you don't ever boost your heroes and you don't use training potions, then you don't care about the bug anyways. And if you do use training potions, cool. All right. Yeah, it's kind of sucks you got to spend 4 gems per day or whatever to like use your training potion. But like that's not the end of the day. At least you can still play the game that you the way that you want to, instead of, like Yoda just being frustrated all the time that he can't do his attacks. So
Yeah.
it's just, to me, Supercell is not willing to be community forward right now in a way that feels very different from when I came back to the game in 2019, where the game felt like, especially once Darian was around, it felt like they were willing to admit missteps, not necessarily call them missteps, but to say like, hey, our intention was that Town Hall 15 was harder than Town Hall 14,
Mhm.
but was a little extra hard, right? Like they're not necessarily going to say it was too hard or wrong, but there were plenty of AMAs where Darian was like, yeah, the hit rate isn't quite where we wanted it, and they were willing to kind of say that kind of thing. And doesn't it just seem like a super easy fix to be like, okay, until we have the training potions fixed, everybody gets free hero boosts.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. I think that would be a great fix for them until they can figure out what they need to do.
Right? Like whatever bug it is, it clearly is involved with the hero hall. So like, unless they're gonna roll back the hero hall rollout, which they're not gonna do, it seems like it's a complicated problem. Right? So like, I'm not saying, oh, why can't they fix it today? I'm just saying, well, okay, until you fix it, just make it better for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing I see, you made a really good point about the communication on it, T, because obviously this training pod's a real pain point for me, right? I guess I've probably articulated that. But another part of my frustration was the communication on it. Like, I didn't even know that they were even aware that it was a problem. Like, there was
Right.
no information that they were sharing with the community. Like, if they would have just came out and said, hey, listen, we, on Twitter or whatever, that, hey, we've got this problem with the training pot. We're aware of it. It's going to take some time. The solution that you offer, T, is perfect. I would be super willing to spend a couple of gems to boost my heroes. But we got none of that. The only way that I found out that they knew is I had to ask somebody that was in the creator program that had the information, that was able to say like, yeah, they know they're working on it. Um, so it's like very frustrating because you have no idea. Like, do they even know that this problem exists? Are they working on it? What's the time frame? And just a little bit of communication would have gone a long way. So I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they have a way of pushing out news to the community in game. So
Right.
why aren't they utilizing that?
Hmm?
They
Why
have
are you?
so many avenues, avenues where they could use. One of my favorite stories when I was a freshman in college, doing my intro to engineering class, we had this guy who was like a old school engineer, had done like hundreds of projects, like who knows. And he says at one time he was hired, where somebody he knew. I honestly, it's 15 years away at this point. I don't remember the specifics of how it was connected to this guy, but it's like a classic story. A lot of people in engineering have heard it, where somebody was hired to go to a building because the residents in the apartment building were complaining the elevator was too slow. And everybody was complaining, and the building was like, okay, we're going to bring in the engineer. We're going to get a quote for how much a new, modern, faster elevator is going to be, and we'll put in a new elevator, and everybody's going to be happy. And the engineer came in and looked at the lobby, looked at the floor, looked at all of the things, and he was like, you guys don't need a new elevator. And they're like, what do you mean? And what he recommended was they put the indicators of where the elevators were on every floor. So when you were waiting for an elevator, you knew, oh, I'm on floor 3, the elevator's on room 6 or floor 6. And suddenly all of the complaints went away. because it wasn't that the elevator was too slow. It's that people didn't know how long they had to wait.
Yep.
And that's the same thing here. It's like people are going to be fuming mad because, like Yoda said, there was no way for you to know. You go into game and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to sit down and play Clash. I've been waiting for all day to get here. I got my beer cracked. I got my TV on. I'm ready to do my Legends hits, or I'm ready to do my war attacks, or I'm ready to do whatever it is that you do, and it doesn't work. And like, that's when you get mad people. When you break the expectation, right? Like, that's the problem. It's not that, every game has bugs. Every game has catastrophes and bad rollouts and all. Like, every game I've played this year, and I've played probably 7 or 8 different games, which is not a lot, but every single one has had an update, and every single update has had at least one game-breaking problem. And it's wild to me that we're like sitting here begging Supercell to communicate a little bit, as if we're reinventing the wheel of how you communicate with your community, when there's examples of everywhere. You got wheels of all sizes and shapes and all of these different companies being like, okay, well, we preemptively communicate, we reactively communicate, we keep our community abreast of our roadmap of everything we're doing in the next 6 months, to like it's a spectrum, right? It's everywhere you want to be, and Supercell is picking not. they're picking 0, which is crazy. Like, that's the worst one. It's obviously the worst one.
Have to agree. All right,
100%.
let's dive into some of the stuff that they gave us. So we got a new town hall, obviously, and you have to merge your Max Eagle into your town hall. And they were I know you want to talk about this.
Speaking of bugs, by the way, I called this one like as soon as I heard that the town hall was merging into the Eagle, before I knew any of the other details, I said they're gonna fuck up the war weight. And I just knew it. I knew it going in. I was like, they're not going to account for the fact that your town hall and your Eagle are your 2 heaviest buildings in the entire calculation of your war weight. And you merge it, and we're seeing people in every Discord server that I'm in that has Clash of Clans players in it. People have been like, yo, I was a max town hall 16. I'm in a war with non-max Town Hall 16s. I upgraded to Town Hall 17. They didn't, and I'm below them in the matchmaking, which is wild. Like, did nobody test any of these things? Like, how? Oh, that is something to me that's like, do you just not know your game? Right? Like, it's very frustrating to be on the receiving end of a change like that, where you're like, and they haven't said anything about it. So it's like, do they even know? Are they aware? Are we just going to earn less ore now by upgrading to Town Hall 17? That's
well, and the irony of that is right now, it seems like that it's actually harder to hit a max Town Hall 16 than it is to hit a Town Hall 17.
110%. Dude, I was doing attacks day 1, and I switched to Hydra because everybody's switching to Hydra, and that's what everybody's playing. And I was doing popcorn blimps, and I was like, if I go against a Town Hall 16, it's 50-50 of whether my popcorn blimp gets good value or mediocre value. And then I went up against a couple Town Hall 17s, and my popcorn blimp took out like 50% of the base. I was like, this seems problematic. I don't know how this is gonna go.
Well, because they removed the bomb explosion, right, from the town hall.
Yeah.
And
the poison.
Has anybody noticed the Giga Bomb trap?
No.
No,
I have not. But then I don't know if it's even placed on the base, because I haven't noticed it.
Okay. Now I'm giving players a lot of credit here, but it has no build time. So to me, that's like an obvious day 1 thing to just drop. So maybe that's too much credit. Maybe I am giving the greater player base too much credit. But to me, it's like, oh, obviously it should be dropped, and I have not noticed it on any attack at all. Now, whether that's like I'm just being perfect and timing my warden ability to be absorbing the bomb, but I legitimately have not seen it go off a single time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once we get a few days in, if we do start noticing it.
Yeah, CWL will be the real test, right? Because then anything that you've placed at level 1 is going to be active, and then we'll actually get to get some kind of feel for the defenses. So I don't know, but Yoda's 100%
Yeah.
right. Like hitting the 16s is so much harder than hitting a 17 right now.
Hitting a 17. Yeah, and so I'm doing Legends attacks, right? So all the bases that, not the bases yesterday because they were still Town Hall 16s, but the bases that I hit today are, in Legends when it works like CWL. So if you place something while it's upgrading, it's live in the map, right? So I'm hitting
Mhm.
legitimate 17s today, and I can tell you that I would rather hit a 17 in Legends right now than a 16.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
surprising. I was actually going to ask you about that because I'm not in Legends. I'm just in Titan 1, and all of the Town Hall 17s, well, not all, almost all of the Town Hall 17s that I've been hitting are upgrading their Town Hall. And same with me, I'm upgrading my Giga Weapon. So I haven't really actually seen the Town Hall do anything because the only thing that I've ever seen it attack has been my Immortal Blimp as it's flying over the base. So maybe, but yeah, this eagle, which I have dubbed the Teagle, because like I refuse to call this the Town Hall, and it's not the eagle, so it's got to be the Teagle, right? So I just don't, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's a really big problem for Supercell to work out
Yeah.
because we don't know the full defensive meta of Town Hall 17, but
Right.
as soon as they said that we were combining the two things, I was like, I really hope that it's going to be like two defenses in one building, right? So there's the Town Hall Inferno is still there, and then in addition, an eagle like mouth comes out from the roof and starts firing an eagle. Because right now, what we have is worse than both.
Yeah. I mean, I have hit some 17s in Legends, and the first thing I have to train my brain to not look for the eagle, right? Because there's a lot of bases with holes, even up in Legends. And,
Right.
I'm still playing around with Root Riders and Valks, and I go to Overgrowth, the eagle, and my brain, it's just muscle memory, right? And
Right, 100%.
I'm like, where am I going to drop this Overgrowth? So it's interesting.
It's one of those things where the eagle to me almost defined attacking in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like to me, at every town hall, starting from the real ones like Town Hall 11, Town Hall 12, you had to pay attention to two things. You had to pay attention to where the eagle was, and you had to make sure you had a plan for how you were going to blow up the town hall. Because if you didn't account for one or both of those things, you probably weren't tripling. And then we get this town hall where both of those things are now one building. So even if it was exactly the same thing, right? If it was just what I was saying before, where it was like an eagle jammed into the town hall building and you had both effects. You're already making freezes more powerful because you're shutting down two buildings in the same space way easier, plus getting whatever you can around them. And then it's like, well, we're warping the whole fundamental balance of the game again. We're doing an equipment again. Like, what are we doing here? This is crazy.
Well, time will tell.
I was just having a conversation with somebody in our SOG chat regarding the clone blimp, because I've been running that strategy for a long time, but basically almost the entire Town Hall 16, aside from when Root Riders were so powerful. And at least at Town Hall 16, it did take a little bit of skill. Like you needed to be able to chain your loons away from the town hall. And if you didn't know how to do that, if you were just dropping them all like a lot of people do, and just dropping them all on top of each other, well, they were all gone. So you just wasted 9 housing space of spells because you didn't know what you were doing. That problem doesn't exist anymore. Like you can put them wherever you want them, and they're just gonna stay alive and go and just start wreaking havoc on a base. It's comical.
For sure. All right, let's dive into the heroes. There's a bit to go through there. Archer Queen, you now get at Town Hall 8, but you can still only use one hero, so you have to choose between the two. I think that's kind of cool. The new hero you get at Town Hall 9, the Minion Prince, and it comes with 2 pieces of equipment, the Henchman and the Dark Orb, which I've heard is very strong. I haven't actually had a chance to use the Minion Prince because I've had him upgrading. You still can only bring 4 heroes at the higher town halls. And we got new hero levels, 5 more levels on each existing hero. What do you guys think of the Minion Prince?
Go ahead, T, you want to go?
Oh man, Minion Prince is bananas. Like he's one of those things where either air is going to be strong and then the Minion Prince is going to be a must bring immediately, or if air falls out of the meta, he's worthless. And that's kind of a weird place for a hero to be. Now, if we get more heroes and only have 4 slots, then maybe it's okay that we have these super niche use case heroes. But then it's like, well, if I'm a new player and I have to upgrade this guy 90 times or 89 times before I can use him, and I'm only going to use him on some attack, like that seems like a very dangerous road to go down. So the fact that you can't like put him on ground mode is strange to me. I had always thought that if we got a flying hero, that it would be like the Warden, where you could, maybe he's best flying, but you could put him on the ground, so you could at least bring them along on ground attacks if you wanted. It's also strange because if you're upgrading, like Supercell had talked about, they wanted to make it easier to upgrade your heroes and not pay as much of a penalty. So this is great. I think it's a good thing for all players at lower town halls, and I think it's going to make strategic rushing even easier. Like the hero and power potion change last year made upgrading as a strategic rusher significantly less detrimental in CWL or important wars where you would keep your heroes up. But this is making it even easier, where you can kind of always have a hero down for free.
Yeah.
But then the question is, if I don't have my Minion Prince down, right, meaning he's awake and available to be used, I'm kind of pushed into using air attacks, because otherwise he's going to eat like 3 black mines as soon as you deploy him. He's going to just die. Or I'm upgrading the Minion Prince, and then I'm, free to do whatever attack I want. But maybe I'm more incentivized to do a ground-based attack because, the combo of Barbarian King, Archer Queen, and Royal Champion are all ground heroes, and they're really, really strong to use, right? Like air attacks make okay use of Barbarian King and Royal Champion, but I think they're significantly worse on air attacks than ground. And you can see that because everybody's essentially immediately swapping one of those two for the Minion Prince.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm going to have to marinate on for a long time before I really figure out how I feel. But like the Minion Prince himself, I think makes an immediate impact without, well, I was going to say without feeling overpowered, but it's really difficult to say right now for me whether or not he's overpowered because the bases are so weak that we're attacking. Right.
Yeah.
Like it feels like if you get your orb perfect, it's like a free triple. And I think Itsu put out a video where he was saying, like, it might have been Judo, I can't remember, where they were like, be careful because it's very easy to miss with your orb. And they are 100% correct. I've missed probably half my attempts because the Minion Prince will just like twitch by a pixel. And instead of shooting the orb directly into the middle of the base, it goes off to the corner. And you're like, oh, I hit a mortar. Damn. So I don't know. I actually kind of like that. There's like a little bit of skill expression with him. He's like immediately fun and good to use. Like interesting that he is at Town Hall 9. I kind of feel bad for anyone who has a perma Town Hall 9 that wants to do wars down there because
let's just break it further.
Right. Like right. Between Archer Queen with Giant Arrow and Minion Prince, does your base do anything? Like I don't think so.
No, it's a sad part of my life. Yoda, what do you think about it?
All right. Well, I actually have a unique perspective when it comes to the additional hero, because this is the first time since I've been playing the game that actually a new hero has been introduced. Because when I started playing, Town Hall 13 was the max Town Hall at the time, so I had actually never got an opportunity to experience a new hero join the game. So for me, I was like a kid in a candy store. I was super hyped when I heard that this was gonna be happening. I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. And the one thing I'll say is that I know that we've done a lot of complaining on this episode, and there was quite frankly a lot of stuff to complain about. I really like the idea that of having the five heroes, and then we're able to keep one down. I mean, I think that is absolutely huge. I mean, we were just having some discussions in SOG leadership just the other day. Historically, when a new town hall is released or a major update comes out where we're having to upgrade heroes, we would allow people to have one hero down during our wars. That was kind of our
Hmm.
rule. Like for a period of time, like 45 days or whatever, we would say, okay, you're allowed to have one hero down. That way they could be working on the heroes. Well, now it's great. Like it's business as usual. Like you can have your hero down, and we can still go into these wars at full strength. So I think that was a really really good thing that Supercell did for the community. Now, as far as this individual hero himself, the Minion Prince, I listen. I'm primarily an air attacker. Anybody that knows me knows that that's what I like to do. So for me, the Minion Prince was something I was really looking forward to. And now that I've had an opportunity to actually use him, I would agree with everything that T said. I think he's very strong with air attacks. I think that I'm getting a lot of questions from people like, well, which hero do we replace him with? T nailed that part as well. You're either looking at the King or the RC, and really there's no wrong answer between the two. You have to keep your clean in, you have to keep your warden in. The other two are interchangeable. I mean, you're gonna change the way you're using your attack a little bit depending on which one you decide to keep in, but you can really swap him with either. But for an air attack, I would definitely recommend using him. There, like T said, there's some nuances with him, but I typically will just plant him like right in the middle of my kill squad, right in the middle of my dragons, and I'll either use my tome first when I'm sending my blimp across the base, or I'll use his ability, which has that freeze effect, and that gives me the opportunity to delay my tome, and then use that later on during the attack. So that's a little bit of nuance. So being able to navigate that and do that pretty well is a skill expression. But yeah, I think he's great. Um, it's funny we were talking about this before we started the podcast, but I haven't even put a hero down in like years. Like I just use
Hmm.
books and hammers and magic items. So I will never have him down. I'll never have any of my heroes down. Um, but so I've had the opportunity to really use him the last couple of days, and I think he's great. I think it's a great addition to the game.
Awesome.
A question. So I've been using the angry jelly on him. What have you two been using on him?
Yeah, go ahead, Kat.
Well, actually, I
Oh, Kat
haven't
hasn't
used.
used him. Yeah,
I haven't even
yeah,
used him
right.
yet.
Oh, hey, you keeping him down, right.
Yeah. So I think the angry jelly is effective, but I've just just threw Diggy on him. Like I didn't even know because it hasn't it really I don't think that there's been a meta established for what the best combination is for him yet. But
Hmm.
I was like, well, Diggy's been sitting around doing nothing. I can dust him off and throw him on it. And it seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea because if he's with the kill squad, presumably stuff is dying fast, and
Hmm.
he's gonna have the orb doing damage reduction and the tome. Yeah, I actually think that's not a bad idea. I had saw some video on YouTube where someone was saying angry jelly to keep him closer to the dragons and the loons.
Mm.
But I my first day, I honestly forgot to put a pet on him at all.
Oh
So
no.
Yep. Same.
he,
Same.
so he was just like cruising around doing stuff, and I
Yep.
kind of have felt like the jelly has made it harder to predict where he's going to go, and I've had like more times where he splits off away from the kill squad. So I might actually try the Diggy. That's an interesting way where it's not going to really change his pathing because like by default he's
Right.
kind of a dragon. And
True.
then when you put the jelly on him, he's kind of like the balloons, and then or
Hmm.
the dragon riders. And I've had a couple times where he splits off, and because he kills something in an interesting position or timing, like the dragon riders will split off. And then I've had a couple attacks like go haywire, and I think it's because of the angry jelly.
Yeah, that's a good point. So another thing that ties into the heroes is, first of all, the hero altars are gone.
Hmm.
So they gave us a new building called the Hero Hall, and you do all your hero upgrades in there. You manage the equipment and pets for them in there. And instead of the altars, you have a little flag that you put on your base wherever you want your hero. And the warden isn't a statue anymore. He's just like one of your other heroes. What are your thoughts on that, Yoda?
Yeah, I mean, I I like the consolidation of having, multiple things that you can do in one spot. Like we used to have to kind of navigate to different areas to work on the equipment or the pets or whatever. So the introduction of the Hero Hall, I really like the interface of it. I think I've got to get used to it still. So let me preface with that. I've only been using it, for a day or whatever. So it's still a little cumbersome to me, but as I'm using it, I'm like, wow, okay, everything's kind of in one spot. So I think that's great. As far as the removal of the altars and replacement of the flags, other than the bug that had came out initially in the game, like I don't really think that makes too big of a difference. But as far as the Hero Hall itself, I like the functionality of it, and I think it's gonna be pretty helpful in the future.
See?
I'm in the same ballpark. I think it's a quality user experience upgrade. It's a nice quality of life change where instead of having to be like, oh, I want to change where my warden statue is, and I want to swap it with my barbarian king. All right, well, where did I put my barbarian king? Okay, and then like swap those. Now it's like you just click any of the altars, and you can directly swap who's on defense there. So I'm not a base builder. I don't know if the change from 3x3 altar to 2x2 flag is an upgrade, a downgrade, a side grade, an irrelevancy. I'm not really sure because I don't really follow the base building meta that strongly. But otherwise, I think it's interesting. Specifically with having the ability to have a flying hero on defense. I think everybody right now for your matchmaking or Legends base, swap out your Warden for the Minion Prince because Minion Prince on defense seems real good, and the Warden on defense is not great. While the bug exists, if you want to exploit it, keep the Warden statue in your war bases, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's interesting to like kind of change that up. It's just nice, right? Like it seems to me like a pure W. It doesn't really seem like there's any downsides.
Yep.
The Hero Hall showing up to try and like fill the space of the Eagle is kind of interesting, and it having so much hit points. Like I'm really curious to see where the base building meta will be in January, right? When the base builders have had enough time to test things and people have had enough time to like place the new merge defenses and place the flame spitters and do all these things. Like I think the bases are going to look very different in January than they do right now. So, and I think the Hero Hall and the altars and the flags and all that, I think that's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think also they've freed up a lot of space on your home base. So you never know what they're going to give us, in their second update.
Yeah,
in the spring.
I use a style of base that anybody who's read my guide is probably very familiar with, called Crows. For all of my non-war, non-legends base layouts, and it was actually kind of weird because it felt like I was going back to like Town Hall 9, where it was like, oh man, how do I fill the rings of the base and not leave any gaps? And I was like, what's happening? I don't understand.
There's too much space open.
Right. Yeah. I was like, everything is so spread out now. And I was like, I guess I accidentally made Crows anti-E-drag, I guess, which is, that's like the thing that always blows up my base because people who attack with E-drags always bring a lot of freezes, and the weakness of the Crows base is freeze or, overgrowth, but nobody's really using that too much anymore. So it was like interesting to be like, oh, well, I guess I accidentally countered the thing that is mostly my problem in matchmaking.
Well, speaking of dragons, we got a bunch of new levels on dragons. Drags, E-drags, Dragon Rider, pretty much anything flying. Oh, and also giants, breakers, wizards. But we also got a new troop, the Thrower, and that unlocks at Town Hall 16. It throws these big giant spears. Apparently has the same range as the Warden. It looks kind of cool. It's a Cyclops, a big pink Cyclops.
I do love the look of the troop. It is. It somehow manages to like kind of stride that line of, is this too cartoony or is this too realistic or is this like boring? And it's none of those things, right? It's like perfectly within the realm of Clash. Like the art team, in my opinion, nailed it. It looks great. I haven't seen anybody using it yet, and I think it's kind of like a root rider situation where the levels on the dragons and E-Drags and everybody else and the minion prince, like everybody that is like trying to play with the new toys is probably playing with dragons and the minion prince. And I like every single time Supercell comes out with a new troop, everybody's always like, "Oh, it's lame. Oh, it stinks." And then like a week later, someone comes up with like some broken strategy with the new troop. So
I'm eagerly waiting for that. So
right, exactly. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to get used. I'm not the creative person when it comes to attacking. I'm like, let me find a video of somebody else who's done the creative legwork, and I will copy them and use their attack.
100%.
Yeah. So I
Yoda?
don't know. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I listen. I agree with T. I think the look of the troop is awesome. I mean, I can remember when the Root Rider came out and all the jokes about the way that troop looked. You know,
Yeah.
it was pretty funny back then. The stuff people you guys will remember, but the stuff people were saying about that troop.
Mhm.
And then
The very
you know,
suggestive wave it was
yeah,
riding.
yeah, yep, exactly. And then, to T's point, yeah, I agree 100%. The Root Riders, we had the same thing. Like you heard me talk about how overpowered they were, but it took weeks before people were even using them. Most of the time, they were just the butt of people's jokes for the first couple of weeks that when that
Mhm.
troop was released, and it didn't catch on until somebody figured out how to use it. And the thrower's going to be in the same exact boat. Like, listen, this troop is going to be broken, just like every troop they release is going to be broken. It might not feel or look it just yet, but give it a couple of weeks, and this thing is it's going to be OP and it's going to be required to be nerfed. No doubt in my mind about
No, no nerfing.
it.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think the unsung hero potentially of all of these troop upgrades, I think is actually possibly maybe if I could caveat it 1,000 times, I would. The wizard,
Mhm.
because you can fit an extra wizard in your clan castle because we have a new level of that, and you can get an extra super wizard in there, and they get a new level. So maybe Super Wizard Blimp comes back? Question mark.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
well,
can certainly
only
see it
one way to
working.
find out, right?
Yeah. Again,
I'm gonna test that tonight when I get home.
yeah,
Awesome.
I am
But
not
don't
the
boost.
tester.
So we also got a new spell, the revive
Mhm.
spell. It
Yep.
revives a dead hero. Have you guys tried that one?
I have not. I have not even upgraded my spell factory. Like
Yep.
that's that, which is like the okay. I always tell people that you should always upgrade your offense first. And I feel like I have to always caveat this with unless you're in a new town hall release, and then you got to play it by ear. And I feel like the revive spell is one of those things where it's
Mm.
like the recall spell. I think in pro play, it's going to find niche uses that are going to shock us.
Right.
But I think for the average player and for even the engaged player, like all of the people in the Clash Files family, where we're all actively playing the game, but not necessarily, going to tournaments or being on pro teams, even though
Hmm.
we do have people there. I don't want to say that they're not doing it, right? But I think most of us are gonna never use this spell. Is gonna be like the reality.
Kind of like the
But
recall spell. It's very niche.
right. I think we're
Yeah.
gonna see Klaus do some craziness with like a full revive comp,
Mhm.
and just wipe a whole base out with just revive spells and his heroes. But I don't know. It seems odd. It's always run into the problem of every other time they've tried to do something like this, where it's like you're planning to fail intentionally, where you could have just planned to not fail.
Right, right. Yoda, what do you think about the spell?
Yeah, so really, I mean, T nailed it. I was actually gonna preface by saying the same thing. I too haven't unlocked it yet. It was when you have finite resources at a town hall release. I just didn't have enough magic items to get to it, so that was one of the things. I was like, oh, I probably aren't gonna need that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I probably made the right decision because everything that I'm hearing from people that are using it or have at least tried it is that it's very underwhelming and could potentially work in a niche situation. But as of right
Yeah.
now, it's I'll put it to you this way: I play the game at a pretty competitive level. And it's not even on my mind to even worry about that spell, trying to unlock it or play with it yet, because it seems very, very underwhelming, and I struggle with finding a use case for it at this point. I'm sure there will be one, like T said, Klaus is going to come up with some wild attack, but right now I don't have it unlocked, and it's pretty low on my priority list to do so.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Can you imagine if the revive spell gave your hero their ability back?
That would
We had
break
some,
everything.
we had some conversations regarding that.
Right? But so here's the thing, right? What if it also took like 4 spell slots or 5 spell slots, right? Like if it was like, okay, you got to commit real hard to using this spell, but you get like a full extra hero deployment. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it probably would break everything, but at least it would be usable. At least it would do something. Maybe it should cost like 10 spell slots. You know, it's like, okay, you're basically not getting any spells, but you get your hero back.
Yeah,
I agree.
We were talking about it in SOG chat, and we were kind of laughing about it. And I said, yeah, it would be great if that were the case, and then I could like slaughter my own hero, like there was a button, so I could just kill it off and then immediately revive it, so I could use the ability again.
Yeah, you'd see people deliberately letting their hero die, right? So,
Yep, exactly.
So there was some other stuff that we got. Some new spell levels. We got a new clan castle level, which increased the space by 5, so that's good. We got the helper hut, which is a nice little shack that you can put somewhere, and they finally removed that goblin builder off of the town hall.
You know what's funny? Since they introduced that thing, I've been mad about the apprentice builder being above the town hall the whole time.
Oh, yes.
And now I'm like, I'm gonna forget to put that stupid apprentice builder on a new thing, because okay, quality of life increase, a good thing. They put the little check mark, so now like when you assign it to a upgrade, you can just leave it there and it'll auto refresh. That's great.
Yeah,
awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, perfect change, super good, like really, really high quality of life, like good stuff. Now, I feel like when he's done, he should then pop up on the town hall. And if you have nothing available and nothing possible to upgrade anymore your max, he should go away. But I do think that little reminder for someone like me, who I am 100% going to forget to reassign him, is like, okay, all right, I'm gonna have to like set a reminder or something to.
You hate him, you love him, you just can't live without him, right?
Yeah, so I gotta jump in here and add something, because we might have just revealed another bug. Because one of the thing that I cannot stand about this guy, it's the opposite of everything T just said. There's a little hand that continues to pop up on my tablet every time I go to log into the game, and it's like
It's
a hand
waving at you.
waving at me that comes. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, Kat?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. I was like, because when I was hearing T talk, I was like, man, is this like a bug on my end that this hand keeps popping up? Because it's annoying the piss out of me. Like every time I log in, his hand's reaching up and waving at me. I'm like, yeah, dude, I know you're there. Like I don't need the hand coming up out of this building every 5 minutes.
Oh, do you not have him assigned to something?
No, because I don't put anything down. I just use magic items on everything.
Okay.
So he sits there idle, just waving at me every single time I look at my base.
Okay, so I didn't actually know that, because as soon as the update went live, I assigned him to my Giga weapon. So he's been assisting since day one, and it's funny. I just opened my game to see what you were talking about, and my game loaded and crashed.
Oh no.
So yeah. So I mean, the good news is if he's auto assigned, he doesn't pop up anywhere.
Right.
Although if you touch the helper hall and I don't have my lab assistant assigned anywhere, then I see the hand. The hand just popped up. So I get it. I see.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a whole bunch of new different things, like new wall levels, new bomb levels. We got a new archer tower that you have to upgrade 700 levels. It just seems like it. Another merged cannon. But they gave us a new signature defense, the fire spitter. You get 2 of them. It targets ground and air, and it has this range thing similar to a sweeper, right? Like you can see where its range is, and the fan.
It has an arc for its fire.
Is that what we call it? I call it a fan.
I mean, you could call it what you want. A fan works.
Those things are pretty nasty. Have you guys run into them?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Yoda.
so I've gotten through one day of Legends hits going against Town Hall 17s, and I haven't even noticed it. I don't even pay attention to where it's at on the map when I'm going to do my
Oh,
attack.
okay.
So I think, yeah, so I think it's, I mean, and again, I know that we all agree that we're so early that we don't know what the meta is going to be. We don't know how tough Town Hall 17 is going to be, right? Eventually. But right now, like, I don't even look to where they're at. Like, I've got my points that I look for, like, where's my sweepers? Where's my spell towers? Where's the monolith, the town hall?
Hmm.
I don't even bother with that thing. It's like an archer tower to me right now. I don't even feel it. So I think it's a little underwhelming. I'm not, granted, I'm not hitting maxed ones yet. Like, I'm hitting the level one to people that have dropped them and just started upgrading them, so they're level one. But yeah, it seems to be a little underwhelming. My guess would be that it probably ends up getting a buff at some point. What do you guys think?
Pete?
I haven't seen a single one in the wild. So here's the thing with it's one of those things where it's like it seems like a weird signature defense where it's got a really long range, but I think Itsu. I can't remember who was somebody's update video. It was either Itsu or Judo that I was watching. Made a really good point. It's just like the sweepers, where if you have them both facing the same direction, then your opponent, your attacker, is going to just come in from the backside of those
Hmm.
things, right? So then they're not going to affect the attack at all. So you have to, therefore, have each one facing a different direction. So effectively, we only really have one flame spitter as a signature defense, and the other one's just like a dead building with hit points.
Mhm.
So I think that's a very strange choice to make, unless the building is so insanely strong that you have to take it out first, like the sweepers, right? Like if you're
Right.
doing an air attack into a sweeper and you don't have a plan for taking it out before your air attack gets there, you're gonna have a bad time. And I think Yoda's right. I just don't think that the flame spitter has that kind of impact to be something where you're like, oh no, where's the flame spitter? What direction is it? That's gonna warp my whole entry. I don't know. I think I we can talk more about this later if we want, but the fact that the flame spitter is coming with day one supercharge levels to me is a huge stumble, a big problem, a big signature defense having that kind of thing, saying like we are not confident in the stats that we've given this thing to start with, so we're going to
Hmm.
put a bunch of garbage levels on it to fix it. And that to me means like we're not going to be seeing flame spitters in the wild at max level on average, because whales will whale and average people will spend their magic items where they're going to spend them. But like your average person who's not spending money and not spending magic items effectively, we're not going to see like maxed flame spitters on average until like February or March.
True.
If they're not good, and if everyone online and in YouTube communities and on Reddit and all those things, if everybody's saying, "Oh, this thing sucks. It doesn't even make an impact," we might even not see them max until the summer, because people will just put them on the back burner and like not actually give any priority to them.
Yeah.
Which it reminds me of the battle builders in Town Hall 14, which like, has anybody ever lost an attack because of a battle builder? Like, I can think of like one example ever where the town hall didn't go down to my super wizard blimp and had like one hit point left, and by the time my army got there, it was full again because of like 3 builders on it. But it was like one attack out of the thousands that I've done since, and I always just feel like the signature defenses should be signature defenses. They should impact the meta. It should be different. It should be harder to attack a town hall above you because it has stuff you're not used to, things that warp the attack in ways that are crazy. And right now, I don't think the flame spitter's it. So
Yeah. Well, unless they, buff it somehow, like you said. I think the reason that, when I did my attacks today, the couple of times that I ran into them, I was kind of surprised to see them. So I wasn't really expecting them.
Mhm.
And so I was kind of trying to figure out on the fly how to deal with them. But yeah, I think you're right. I think definitely a signature defense should make it near impossible to triple a base when it's at a max level for sure.
Right? Like, it should at least be something that changes your approach.
Yeah.
That's all.
Like the monolith. You know?
Right.
Like the monolith. Let's not talk about that.
Or the spell
Right?
towers.
Uh,
Or the scatter shots. Remember when scatter
Right.
shots, like, okay, Yoda, you know, we're coming up when Town Hall 13 was max, but like when scatter shots came out, you could not attack a Town Hall 13 as a Town Hall 12 and have a prayer of tripling. Like
Mhm.
like even a brand spanking new one where all they did was drop 2 level 1 scatter shots, you had zero chance. You had nothing. There was no way that you were tripling. And like that to me is what it should be. It should be, and like, you know, I don't think that the ricochet cannon and the multi archer tower were quite that strong, but they did at least do something, right? Like you had to take into account a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing that UT wanted to discuss in specific tonight was hard mode. And, you know, it was something that came out in response to a lot of complaints about how easy Town Hall 16 was. How do you think that's going to progress in Town Hall 17? They played Worlds in hard mode, and the pros didn't seem to have any issues at all tripling bases in hard mode. What are your thoughts on it?
I think Yoda has probably as much to say about this topic as I do, which is a lot. So I'll try to rein it in. I think Supercell is just dropping the ball. To see a company spend development time and money on a new mode like hard mode and then just let it flounder is something that is like inconceivable to me. It doesn't make sense. And I struggle with this a lot in the greater world where things don't make logical sense. And I'm like, but why? And it's like, this is a for-profit company that has spent some of its money making a thing that they seem allergic to using. And I think in a game like Clash, where you have huge communities of casual players who want to be able to triple regularly, who don't want to have to spend hours on YouTube and Twitch watching attacks to learn what the pros are doing, and then hours in-game practicing and doing all of these things to have success, they don't want to do that, right? And then you also have the community of people who do want to do that and are going to spend the time. And if you have these two communities that are so disjointed in their skill expression, trying to say we're going to make one game to please them both is futile. And I thought it was such a good move when Supercell was like, oh, we're going to come out with hard mode. And that was like, I was like, oh, that is such a good idea. And it's so obviously going to make things better. And then they just didn't implement it really. And I've said it to basically anybody who will listen. We should have hard mode as an optional matchmaking option for regular wars. Maybe it's like you have to be in a level 15 clan, or the clan has to have done 100 wars, or if you've done 10 wars in the last 60 days, you can do it. Like some sort of limit so that it's not just like every clan is doing hard mode. Like that could be a thing. Implementing it in certain thresholds for Legend Leagues could be a thing. And implementing it in, say, Champion 1 CWL, or maybe Champion 1 and Champion 2 CWL. And I think they got to like crank the knob of difficulty to 11. Like right now we're at like a 2. And the difference between hard mode and regular mode should be such that you're like, oh, if I haven't practiced hard mode attacks, I shouldn't even get a star. You know, like maybe not that excessive to like that degree, but it should be something where it's like immediately noticeable on every level for anyone who's not spending a lot of time in it, because it should be something for the upper echelons of the game, for people who are willing to put in that time and that effort. And then maybe we curb stuff like, you know, buying top Legend League spots and win trading and all that stuff that happens there. It's like, well, if you have to be insanely good at the game in order to get to that point, well, maybe we just have good players at the top of our league instead of, you know, who's got the most money, right?
Well, and it did used to mean something when in the old community leagues. It was a big deal if you were playing for one of these clans that were playing in the original CWL or whatever league it was, and you know, you made it and you won that championship, that meant that you were a good player and you had put lots of time and effort into your attacks and stuff. And the game has lost that somewhere along the way, you know. And I know, Yoda, you wanted to talk about Legends and what Supercell can do to address win trading. And I think that ties into the whole hard mode thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's tough to follow T's act because I don't disagree with anything that he said. Other than there'd be one small thing that I would potentially disagree with, in that the balance in hard mode is probably a little bit more difficult than we're giving it credit for. I have experience with hard mode. I've used it quite a bit. I've used it on on competitive teams. Used it for FCs and different things. So I've got a lot of experience using both modes. And for somebody like, I'm not a pro player, right? Like, I am somebody who considers himself to be a competitive player, and I try to do and play the game as best that I can. Um, and I could definitely notice a difference when we're going in hard mode. I'll give you an example. I'm playing. Shout out to the War Heroes. I've been playing some leagues recently with those guys, and quite frankly, they're better than me. I'm not afraid to admit that they've got some really skilled players over there, and we're doing matches in hard mode where we're coming up and it's a 10-9 type of deal against another team. Like, they're what you're seeing, like, with Worlds, like, those players are the best of the best in the entire world. There's 100 of them, right? There's not very many of them, and yeah, they're when they're doing hard mode, they're on a completely different level. So that's where you're seeing the 15-15 wars in hard mode, or the 15-14 wars in hard mode. But for your average competitive player, people like me, I think hard mode is in a pretty good spot right now. But the good thing about hard mode is that they can tweak the balance to it, right? So if it does potentially become too easy and we need to make it more difficult, they can tweak it very easily. Like, they've already done that once. Like, when they first released the initial hard mode, it was kind of a joke. Like, you barely noticed it. But as soon as they took away when they buffed it, and they took away levels on the hero equipment, they made the defenses more strong. It made a big difference in the outcome of those attacks. So yeah, but to T's point, I agree with everything that he said. Like, we have a balance problem in the game right now, and they have something to be able to fix it. Like, we can literally please everybody, just like T said. Like, we have it right here. Um, so specifically, what I wanted to talk about with Legends, though, is this. So there's a lot of frustration right now amongst players who religiously play in Legends League. Like, I consider myself one of those people. I have not missed a Legends attack, and I can't even tell you how long. It's my most favorite part of the game is Legends League. I absolutely love it. That's where I spend 90% of my time playing. The game itself is doing it in Legends. And the problem with Legends League, really, for like the last, I don't know, 9 months, it's been completely broken towards the top of Legends League. Okay. I'm not talking about people down in the 5,400 range and below, or whatever. All kinds of weird stuff goes on down there. But for the people who are actually trying to push in Legends, and Kat, you know many people, T, many people, and I certainly do. It's been really, really frustrating with the state of the way it's been lately. Like, once you got about, we'll use this month as an example. I had to speak like Yoda all day today on Discord because I lost a Legends bet to Fuzzy, right? So Fuzzy and I we're pushing, and we've got a bet and everything. We're trying to go as high as we can, and then once we hit like 5,700, you hit a brick wall, and then now all you're doing is you're playing not to lose cups. Like, you're getting tripled. Eight of your defenses, or seven of your defenses, are all triples. So you're literally logging into the game to to not lose cups, and that's not fun. Like, that's just, it's not a fun place to be. Like, you want to have a reasonable expectation that you can gain, like, you can move forward up the ladder. And when you get eight triples on defense, and now, okay, well, I got to get eight triples on offense so I can just maintain my current position. That's broken, and that's where things need to change. And then, to T's point, like, we have the solution. Supercell, listen to us. You have the solution. All they need to do is take hard mode and implement it in Legends at some specific point. Like, I think that you don't want to do it across all of Legends, because you have plenty of people that like to hang out. They like the purple badge, and they hang out down at the 5,200 range, and they do 2 to 3 attacks a day, and they're perfectly content down there. That's fine. We can leave those folks alone. But once you get to 5,600 or 5,500 maybe, then you automatically enter into, Legends and Hard Mode. So if I finished above 5,600 cups that day, well, tomorrow all of my attacks and all of my defenses are all going to be in Hard Mode. And every day that I finish above that point, it's all in Hard Mode. If you did that, I think it would solve the problem and the frustration that, like myself and a lot of players that, really enjoy Legends League. That's gonna solve all of the problems. Now, the other point is with the win trading, right? We've mentioned that a couple of times already on the podcast. That's
Mhm.
the other frustrating part, because you'll look at, like, there was a period in time where like Fuzzy and I and a bunch of other people in the CFF, we had pushed pretty high up in the Legends, right? So you're starting to get near that 6,000K mark. Well, if you were to go in there and look at the top 200 players that are like above 6,000, they all have all these, they have like these defenses that they're getting that none of us, like 2 to 300 cups below them, are getting, because they're doing so through win trading. There's entire, websites and Discord servers dedicated to this process where, you can pay to have somebody come and fail on your base so you can gain
Yeah.
cups. And
Yeah.
when you're trying to do your best to climb the ladder and succeed, and there's no way to do it without cheating. Like, it would be impossible for me to reach number one without cheating, because everybody's tripling everybody's bases. Then that's a problem, and it's something that's got to be fixed. Now, what I will say, the good news is, I know that Supercell is aware of the problem, and they are going after those accounts for the people that are doing it. But I think they could do a heck of a lot more to eliminate the problem. I mean, if you're caught cheating at the game at a high level like that, like, this is not somebody exploiting a glitch down in Gold 1 doing a farming attack, right? These are people that are, supposedly the best in the world at the top of Legends League. And if they're doing so by cheating in the game, I think Supercell needs to take that a lot more seriously that they are right now, and start banning accounts.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know I've seen lots of posts on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it,
It's
about
Twitter. It's
it's
always
Twitter.
Twitter.
Okay, it's
Let's
Twitter.
be real.
But there are people that will, you know, screenshot and call people out about it. And I think Supercell, when they see stuff like that, they do act upon it. It's similar to the whole modding issues back in the day, where there were so many people modding, and it took Supercell a long time to develop what they needed to track these people and ban their accounts. And then all of a sudden there were these huge ban waves, right? So I'm hopeful that we will see some kind of action on that. But I think definitely what you guys said about introducing hard mode at the higher Legends levels would be a good first step to making a bit of a dent in the problem.
Yep.
Right. Like, if
I
every
agree.
attack isn't a guaranteed 3-star, then it's giving a shot to someone like Yoda, who's not paying for people to fail on his base, because maybe he finds a good base builder and they test a base together and they find something that works and is tricky. And maybe instead of 7 triples, he only has 4 triples. And then suddenly it's like, okay, now you have an opportunity to gain cups again.
Definitely.
Right. Exactly.
So let's, getting towards the end of the show, let's talk about what we hope to see for the next year for Town Hall 17. If you guys have one thing that you would hope to see from Town Hall 17.
That's a tough one.
Go ahead.
Just one.
So I kind of have like a lot. So if I would say that there's one thing that I want to shift in Clash, is that I want to see more free opportunities to earn ore. I think that's, to me, even though, like, personally, I have more than 8 maxed equipments. So I always have an opportunity that if I wanted to, I could have nothing but maxed equipments to use on all my heroes. So this isn't even for me personally. It's more for new players, the community overall, and the health of the game. I just don't think we're getting enough purple and orange ore. I just don't think it's enough. especially when your heroes become such a large component of not just your attacking power, but just your enjoyment. It sucks attacking without your heroes, and you have to do it for so long that to then be like, oh, well, now the meta is this piece of equipment that you haven't touched in 6 months, and now you have to spend 3 months upgrading this other epic piece of equipment, and it's like, why? The whole point of the equipment is to like increase versatility and increase the options and the depth of strategy and all of these things that are great, that are awesome. And then it's like, oh, well, you can't actually engage with it for months on end. And so for me, I just want to, even if it's something dumb like more free events with no event pass that are giving or doubling the amount from the event pass, like the medal conversion. So like instead of getting, I can't remember, I think it's like for 320 event medals, you get like 350 blue ore or whatever. They just doubled those amounts. That would make a meaningful difference. Just more ore. I want to play with more of the pieces of equipment, and it's like, oh, cool. The earthquake boots are now in the meta because they buffed them. Well, mine were level 1 when that happened.
I
what
agree.
I mean?
Yoda?
Yeah, for me, it's simple, and it's something that we've already discussed. Just balance. Like we gotta fix the balance in Legends League. We've got to fix the balance in top level CWL, and we've got to fix the balance when it comes to our regular wars. Like I'm absolutely sick of just perfect wars over and over and over again, and
Yeah.
playing not to lose. Like that's what we're all doing right now. We're playing not to lose, and it's just like it, they that's what they have to do. They just have to fix the balance somehow at 17. And based off of what I'm seeing, I know it's super early, so I got to preface with that. But it seems like Town Hall 17 might actually be easier than 16, and I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, they've got to do something with the balance of the game. Like, and I think like T talked about, both T and I, hard mode is the perfect way to do it, because you're not gonna please somebody like me that is playing hours a day in the game, and somebody who's also treating the game as a farming simulator, right? Like we're wildly different people, and it's gonna be hard to please us all. But you can, if you just implement hard mode in more areas of the game than it currently exists today. So that would be my number one ask.
Mine is just, I want them to keep the game fun. And I think you achieve that through balance. So it's not too hard, not too easy. Like I think I'm echoing what you both have said. There's no reason to have to release troops and spells and things like that, and then have to come in with 3 or 4 big nerfs to them to try and balance the game. I think that is ridiculous. So keep it fun, but keep it balanced. That's my wish.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, I to see the amount of times that root riders got hit before people stopped using them, I was a little frustrating. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna nerf the troop, just hit it with a hammer first, and then if you gotta buff it afterwards, fine. But at least make like meaningful changes if you're gonna buff or nerf something.
I agree. All right, it's time for some shout outs. T, do you have any shout outs?
Oh man, I want to shout out everybody in the Rush channel on CFF that has been helping me answer all of the questions. Because normally we get a lot of repeat questions of new players, and that's fine. I like talking to people about rushing. It's why I wrote the guide. But whenever there's a new update, you get people coming in who haven't read the dozens of conversations that we've had about the lab assistant, and should I go to Town Hall 17? And so there's been a bunch of people in there. I know Philotix has done some work, and a few others, of just calmly keeping everybody on track and answering questions and keeping the channel running smoothly. And it's been fun. It's been fun to be able to engage with people for a new Town Hall release. It's always interesting. So I just want to shout out the community in that channel, particularly for doing a good job of keeping things respectful for the most part, and just like talking, expressing our hopes and our disappointments or our excitements, and just keeping like a fun, positive environment to chat about the game in.
Awesome. Yoda?
All right, well, Kat, certainly thank you for having me on. It's been a great discussion. Quite an honor to come in for and do an episode on a town hall release. So thank you so much for having me on. The other shout outs that I've got is a person that I've gotten to know much better over the last 12 months, and that's Cool Rick. He's an awesome dude, and it's been a pleasure to be able to get to know him a lot better and to be able to call him a friend, and he just makes me laugh. So I wanted to shout him out. I want to shout out my Call Me T as well. Really, what he just talked about. I mean, his tireless work answering questions from the community. I mean, and he gets a lot, and he always has a lot on his plate. Yet he still has time to help, run the Sons of Guns. So I want to give him a big shout out. And then, lastly, one of the things that I definitely want to shout out is I know some of the folks that listen are gonna know this, but we do what's called an end of season push in SOG, and basically what that means is we bring in players to try to, or high legends players to try to push the clan up as high as we can in the rankings. And it's been an SOG tradition for years. We've done it for a very long time, and we can't do that alone. Like, we're not good enough to rank top 10 in the United States without help from our friends. And there are a few clans that I want to mention that every single month are sending over players to our clans. So that's Red Thorn Cat, your clan. That's the Rated, and then that's the Good Guys. And I want to specifically call out a couple of people who help to organize that in those clans. They're always over in SOG, and they're always bringing people over from those clans. So that's the aforementioned Cool Rick over in the Good Guys. That's Fuzzy Beaver Nuts for the Rated, and then King Redbeard for Red Thorn.
Yeah.
I cannot thank you guys enough for all of the help that you guys do with the coordinating. Bringing your own accounts. You're getting promoted to co-leader. You're kicking out all of our people, which is great to help boost this up. And it's funny because once we start getting so high, like we start approaching like top 10 in the United States or top 200 globally, I'll start because I'm the leader of the clan. I'll get the DMs from people saying like, "Hey, are you gonna pay me to come over and join your clan and
Oh boy.
help push you up?" And yeah, and it's hilarious to me because we're not paying. This is just these are just all our friends, right? This is SOG and all of SOG's friends. So really appreciate that. I wanted to make sure all those guys knew exactly how much I did.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to shout out both of you guys for agreeing to come on the show. I really appreciate it. And I want you both to know that we've managed to come in under the old record of 2 hours. So by
listen,
just a few minutes.
I can vamp for 7 minutes. I promise you I could.
Let's have some pity on poor Mama Sids who has to edit this all for us.
Of course.
But I also want to shout out Magnus, one of the co-leaders at Red Thorn. He's always there to help me, and he's one of the kindest, most decent people I know. So big shout out to him. And a big shout out to Storm Rider, another co-leader at Red Thorn. His dog Zero suffered a really bad accident and is at the vet. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of them tonight. So shout out to him. And if anybody's interested in strategic rushing, they can check out CallMeTee. He has a big group of people in a specific set of channels dedicated to that in the CFF server.
If you Google CallMeTee Rush Bible, it'll come right up. It's got 40-something pages at the moment, and I will be...
And growing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be updating it sometime. I've been saying that for months because I keep trying, and then Super Sub keeps changing things, but hopefully it'll be updated before New Year's? ?
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kat.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. The CFF is a family of clans who love to play various games such as Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, and others. You can send questions or comments to us on Twitter at RedthornCOC. To get more information on our clans, events, and podcasts, join the CFF Discord at discord.gg/clashfiles.
Dear Clash Gods, I confess my emotions have been a mess. Cause you changed everything we ever knew. From witches to poison and the Queen walked too.